Hi.
Thank you for coming to yet another Ōkami talk. This
Thank
is,
you for
I think,
inviting
Thank you.
you're welcome. I think this is the eighth one so far, and our topics have been all over the place. Truly, there is no specific theme or narrative that we're trying to or convey and or impose. Not at all. We're just talking about anything and everything and reminding people that that's what we do best. We communicate. That's how our whole human race built everything, and yet somehow every day we forget about that. So today's topic. Hello, who's that?
it. That's Freddie.
Hello. Well, I miss having a cat. Cool. I mean, ironically, I technically have one because I live with someone named Cat, but still. Cool. On that note, today we're talking about friends and family. The tribe we choose versus the one that we're born into. And yeah, I believe between the three of us, there's a lot of interesting perspective in our experience from our childhoods, from our current, uh, place in life, I guess. So yeah, let's just start with. I mean, I was about to say simple, but let's face it, none of this is simple. Um, what is a relationship?
I think it depends on the individual.
Yeah.
It depends on your own belief system and what you require in a friend. Because I know I've got different needs from other people, so I think it's completely individual. I believe, and I feel like that's where there's a lot of miscommunication between people because we all have different values.
Yeah.
I don't. What is a friend? I mean, my version of a friend could possibly be different from yours. And I'm open to that.
I mean, we'll still get to what a friend specifically is, but the relationship itself, like at its base, what is it?
I'd say symbiotic interaction. So it's a give and take, a two-way street, a community kind of thing. So I would say a relationship at its core is the act of relating, isn't it? So I meet you, you have certain needs, I have certain needs, and we figure out whether those needs either clash or merge or, you know, who's going to benefit. I think sometimes the scale weighs heavier on one side than the other, but sometimes in those very rare moments, you get to get those scales balancing. So, yeah.
I mean, it's interesting how both of you kind of lean towards a good relationship. Because
Okay.
exactly, because relationship at its core, it isn't good or bad. It's just
Hmm.
it is in an essence um, an accumulation of reactions towards each other.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
it is not necessarily how I relate to you. That's a feeling based concept that's evolved as we did. But initially it was me in relation to you, my relevance, my our interaction essentially, and that's where it started because it started from I and then you, um, and from there we create everything. It goes to friendships, family, social, economic, political. Like there's context within everything. So let's narrow that down and specifically. So what is a friend then? And although everyone might have a specific end, image of what a friend might be, I'm pretty sure that there are some core values that
Mm.
someone to be considered and truly called friend, they would be the same.
Communication. Communication. That's a big, fat one.
See, I'd say communication for sure. But before you get there, I think you need a bond of some sort. You kind of an interpersonal bond of some kind of description. Because of course, we communicate all the time, but whether it's good communication or bad communication, but in order for me to consider somebody my friend, I feel like I have to have bonded with them. Whether
Yeah.
it's like a basic bond, like, oh, we both like, I don't know, dancing, or we both like music, but we've bonded over something familiar, or even circumstance, or location, or yeah.
What is a friend?
Only simple questions, Vicky, you know me.
It's not simple at all, is it? It's
What is a friend? And this is oh, I don't know what a friend is. I'm still figuring that out. Because even like recently, like people that you have like an idea in your head that they're going to be in your life for a long time, but things change. And
yeah,
I've had to let go of people that I thought were my people, but that's okay because
yeah,
we're all changing, and our ideas of what a friend is changing all the time.
mm,
And the more value you have for yourself, the different people that you will let in. But
mm,
friends come in very different forms, and that's where I'm learning to become more open to different people and different energies. Because instantly, if someone, excuse my language, pisses me off, I'm like,
mm,
no, they're out. But the
mm,
friends come in different shapes and sizes, and they're in our lives for different reasons. I've got that friend for something. I've got that friend for something. I connect
yeah,
with them on a level, and I think that's the most beautiful thing, because all
yeah,
these relationships, I feel like, come in and out at the right time.
mm,
Because I notice if I try and hold on to a friendship that's maybe on its way out or it's changing, there's just something that I just need to allow the universe to be like, you know what, it just needs time, and then it comes back at the right time as well. I don't know
mm,
if I went off on a tangent here, but um yeah, they come in all shapes and sizes.
yeah.
And it's just
I
love at the end of the day, man. Just love.
yeah,
So yeah. Nicole, what were you gonna say?
I love that. No, literally, I was just like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. I think the friendships evolve as you grow, right? As you do. Because I look at the friends or the people I called friend when I was at school,
Yeah.
for example, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have these people in my life forever. We made, verbal plans to do X, Y, and Z together, and I don't even remember what half of them look like, or what it was that made me connect with those people at that time. I think, the older I've got, the more I've discovered myself, the more varying types of people that I've called friend, from people that, there's people that people say, oh, in another lifetime, there's no way we could ever like interact because you're so different. But I don't know. Yeah, I think, yeah, friendship evolves as we do, and our definition of it evolves as we do.
There is, I might be slightly paraphrasing, and I'll do my best to find and remember after this podcast by whom this quote was. I have a feeling I've said this to you, Nicole. You were here
Okay.
visiting, but only true friends will leave imprints of their feet
Mm,
in your heart. And there's so much to this quote, but it's the imprints part that made me think that when you leave an imprint in the sand on the beach, most likely it will disappear very soon with the next tide or wave itself. But you'll always remember that you left that imprint, right?
Mm.
You'll remember that experience and everything else. So it's not just friends, but everyone else, to be fair, that we interact with. It's our memories or current experiences that are the only ones that are the real proof or our reference point towards what life is, right? So people constantly change. Things come and go. That's inevitable. But what people meant to you, how they influenced you, how they helped you if need be, even if it changed at some point, does that really take away from everything that happened? Which means, because you said, Vikki, that you're trying to kind of figure out what a friend is, because some people that you thought would be in life forever might not necessarily be. But they will be. They'll be forever in the life of Vikki that you were at the time when you guys were friends, because you're a different person now as well. And who knows how they view you currently, but that doesn't change what you guys have. So yeah, I feel like friendships are such an interesting thing, because it's not just about what others mean to us, but it's also what we meant to us every single time we were with those people. Like I have friends that I have had for over 15 years, and I have friends that, like Nicole herself, I've known for less than a month, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, I was introduced sort of, but actually met for less than a month. And I've always kind of cut short that unnecessary, or like, oh yeah, one interaction, another interaction, oh, let's do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then like a couple of years later, you realize, oh my God, we're close friends. You do realize you can like cut that in like 2 to 3 days. You need to have like just a couple of deep conversations, eat some good food, play some games, have a laugh, share some stories that defined you. And that's it. And you will know whether you could be friends or not. Because that's the thing, there is no such things as you will be friends for the rest of your life. Future is undetermined. Well, depends on what kind of existence and reality you believe. But to our understanding, to the kind of mortal life that we're part of, it comes and goes, and we don't know what was before nor what was going to come after. But yeah, I feel like we could learn to appreciate relationships in general much more, and perhaps make a practice of trying to remember the good parts. Not necessarily to change what happened, to actually go against our natural habits of negativity. Like, we have 5 times the amount of negative cells in our brain, so every time you think of a negative thought, it gets amplified whether you want it or not. And we have this tendency to like hold on to everything that at any point has put us at risk. Our bodies do that. Like, it's for survival, or at least that's how our bodies tell to ourselves. But yeah, one good memory truly, held on to, can make the whole experience different. All of it. Look at labor. I can guarantee that in the moment, every single woman would be ready to kill everyone in the world just to stop that pain.
Yeah,
and
I
yet,
can attest to that.
Right? And why the hell they decide to do it again? Because it's great. Because it's great. Why? Because straight after you've given birth, for the next 3 to 4 days, your body is pumping you full of every single hormone you can have. So your body is like, oh shit, this is actually one of the best experiences in my life. And then on top of that, it's all the attention and praise, because it's a new life has come into you. So you appreciate that as a person. And a few years down the line of all the experiences you've had with your kid, you're like, do you know what? Yeah, I might hate them sometimes, or I think that, but this is literally the best thing that's ever happened. And this is where we're kind of wired. Experiential self versus the narrative self. And the narrative one You can pick anything from any book, any article, anything you've ever read, and make your own story, right? Imagine you do that every single day about yourself without realizing. Anyway, I feel like we went like very, very room. So, what's family?
Oh, that's just a really, I mean, we're going to try and answer it to the best of best we can, but that's just another difficult question.
I mean, there's a reason I invited both of you to discuss these topics.
Well, there's the family that you're born into, and then there's the one that you choose.
Yeah.
Let's start with the born into. What defines that?
Biology.
Plain and simple.
Literally. Like, did you come out of your mother's foof? Or I'm trying to be PC. Yeah, so like siblings, aunties, uncles, mom, dad, regardless of how, I'd say tumultuous it can be, to be part of a family, you don't get a choice. Whether you know your biological parents, whether you're adopted or whatever, everybody has that biology, to bring them into this earth. So, yeah.
Do you agree, Vikki? The biological part, let's say, that's what mainly narrates family.
What's the question again?
Like, what's family? They're born into one. Let's start with that one, and then we can discuss.
Yeah, it's definitely that, because we, on some energetic level, chose this life, whether it's to be adopted, whether it's to have like drug addict parents, whether it's to be in a rich family, whatever the circumstance. I genuinely believe on some energetic level, our souls have like chose that life.
But do you believe that you still keep choosing that? Because I'll give you something that. Do we follow the normative, although it's different all over the world, of how you behave within a family, depending on your role? Is that decided by nature and biology, or is that social norms that we made up?
Can you repeat that, Ed? I couldn't really hear you.
Sorry, I'll get closer to the mic. It might be that. So there's different setups of how families are around the world, but regardless of which setup, there is one in some way. So do we follow those because of nature and biology, or do we follow those because of social norms and culture?
It's a bit of both.
Both, yeah, totally.
Because then
to what extent, though? Because there's a very broad expression, right? Like you can be a good son or a daughter, let's say in the US, and that's one example of how you'll behave and how your whole perception of life and relationships within family is going to be. And let's say in India, exact same model, but a whole different outcome. So why is that? The difference of level of sense of responsibility, of different expression of honor and discipline and obedience. But yeah, I'm just throwing things out. So
I'd say it's definitely both, because I can only use myself as an example. My mum and dad were okay. Oh, please don't see this, Mum. But I would say, when I look at some examples of what I thought was good parenting, my own definition, I'd say they fell short a lot of the time, right? But that doesn't mean that by somebody else's standard, they wouldn't have been perfect, because they weren't abusive. They were, providing a roof over my head. They were feeding me and doing all of those socially required things, but in terms of the emotional capacity that they had, in terms of raising me and my individual needs, I think they fell short. So it's totally down. And then I think, okay, I'm a mum myself, and then I think, okay, aside from the fact that I carried my daughter and, breastfed her and, raised her and did all of those things that are required of me as a mum, I don't think I'm very maternal at all. And then I think, well, who then defines that? Because my kid is healthy, my kid is happy, my kid is bright, she's smart, and all of those things. So it's hard to kind of say which determines which, whether it's nature or nurture or both. I think it's a healthy dose of both that's required. Yeah.
So do you think that the true divide in some manner between friends and family is because of things like labels? Because a big impact, let's say, although there is the natural, truly natural instinct of, let's say, not wanting to hurt your mother unless you truly have a deviation within your brain of sociopathy, psychopathy, and the like. That's different. But under normal circumstances, unless something tragic has been done by your parent, you won't necessarily consider killing them. Let's take it extreme. Or hurting them in any manner. And drastic is truly like that every person has their own capacity for trauma. Hence, I don't think there's a scale that is universal. But that implies that part of our allegiance, to be very like blunt and non-sided orientated, is down to nurture. It's because our parents, whether loved us or provided us or protected us or taught us something, but it was still a reasonably welcoming and clearly habitable environment, because here we are, right? For better or worse, how it was done has clearly left some imprint, good or bad. But that once again shows that, let's say, someone who's not your blood, but they raised you, you became friends, I don't know, let's say someone truly, an adult, met an orphan or whatnot, and they raised you. That person feels, or both of them feel about each other truly like any other family, without the necessary biological connection. So I feel like there's so much gray ground in between that we've forgotten to explore it. Because where I kind of want to go with this is the culture versus nature aspect. Let's say you get in a fight with your sibling or your parent. Isn't part of the reason why you fix things because they're family? Just the expression itself, they're family. Like, what am I going to do? Disown them? We don't even assume that that is an option, because technically, within essence, it is. Like, it's a hard option because of how the world is built, but it is an option. We just don't consider it because we've never really questioned these things. It's the same way as we never question why are we patriotic, or why do we believe in the same things that our parents and grandparents believed without questioning such, and why do we take colors for granted or anything else? We don't question things because if something's easy, given to you, and it works, why would you question it? But just because something works doesn't mean that it's the best shape, form, or the way of it. Someone just decided at some point to stop. So
I think
what do you think?
There's something really beautiful in that. Like, I'm saying this from a place of not understanding other people's situations, right? But yeah, do you know, like when you're in a, say, just a relationship, and things get a bit rocky, and then instead of working through some stuff, you just go separate ways, which is also a great option. But I think, like, with my family, we fight, but there's just this unconditional love between us,
Mm.
which I think is a beautiful thing to have. But then obviously at times I'm like, but I didn't choose this. I didn't choose my family, and I've like been around friends that whose situation's much worse than me, and they've had to get up and leave.
Mm.
But in terms of like the support
Mm.
that my family have, that's a really hard question.
Mm.
A really hard question. I just feel
Mm.
like there's just something really beautiful, and just because me and my brother fight like cat and dog,
Yep,
and then
me too.
we'll just wake up the next day as if nothing's happened. And I'm like, have you forgot that we just like threw stuff at each other last night? You know, even now. Oh,
I reckon it's because of that whole unconditional kind of thing that's placed, whether it's imposed or it's just something we all just agree to. Because of that kind of, I don't have a choice. It's like it doesn't
they're
matter
my
how big the fight is. If I fought in the way that I fight with my siblings, or let's say I used to fight with my siblings, with anybody who isn't my family, they'd be gone.
family.
There's no way I would maintain that friendship because it would be too much work. It would be too much. But then you think, well, as much as I could move to the other end of the world, you know, that fact that my brother is my brother will never change. I can't ever change that no matter what I do. I could change my last name, I could get married, I could do this, but he's still going to be my brother. So I guess it's that little bit of no condition that makes us stick together, through thick and thin.
And
So
you do see as well. Sorry, Ed.
no, it's fine. Go. Ask.
I was just
Sorry.
before we and you do see the issues in people that grow up and they don't know their mum or they don't know their
Mm,
dad, even if they've got like two amazing parent figures that love them. It's
mm,
just that it clearly has an effect if you're not
mm,
connected with that person, but we don't know if that's a conditioned feeling.
It depends, most likely on what kind of circumstance. Let's say you might not have an actual, figure or family, but if you've been fully surrounded by such people, let's say truly a village,
mm,
there's scientific supporting evidence that, funnily enough, friendships have much more beneficial influence on
mm,
people, especially adults. Um,
yeah.
and finally, enough, this thing. So, as a child, you need to have a very supportive and open family, for stability. But you need to make friends to learn how to make friends. Because when you're an adult, because you grow up and you no longer follow whatever the hierarchy, or you're less likely to follow the hierarchy of certain obedience within the family when you're an adult, because you're an independent person that provides for themselves in some manner, or at least you're an independent thinker. Family no longer is as easy to maintain within the same vicinity constantly. Hence, you need, and it isn't necessarily a substitute, it's an alternative of what the world and nature provides, which is a group of friends, I believe. But before we move in someplace else, I do want to ask, then both of you expressed that this, unconditional aspect, and as well as you said, but with friends, like, I wouldn't deal with that shit, right? So my question is, why can't we apply the same unconditional love and tenacity towards certain friends? And vice versa, why sometimes when you truly see that, although they're your family, they're really bad for you and everyone else around them. So same as friends, it's not like you erase them from your life, but you do leave them at that part of your life. Whereas the part that follows is different. And I'm not saying that everyone should make these calls, nor that that's the way to be. It's more just, why do we fight so hard for family even when there's no evidence for reason within it? And why do we give up on certain friends so effortlessly sometimes, instead of maybe holding on?
That's a good point.
It's a really good question. See, to be honest, I would say I'm the kind of person who's done the opposite, whereas I've placed more unconditional love on friendship versus family. Because as much as I'm kind of the black sheep of the family, so I've always kind of been not outcast, but I've always kind of done things on purpose to kind of piss them off, or to kind of stamp my own identity and make sure that, you know, yeah, we could be similar in some regards, but they don't really know me as intimately as you would hope a family member would know you, versus my friends who I am way more open with, way more connected to, and way more, I don't know, protective of, I would say. You know, I think my family all live all over the place. My dad is in Australia, my mum's in America, my sister is in Leeds, my brother, one of them is in Bournemouth, the other one is in Bristol, my sister is in East Grinstead. So because of that distance already, it's very difficult to kind of say we're so connected and we're so tight, you know. And I hear other people be like, oh yeah, my mum lives down the road, or my sister just lives around the corner. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. But equally, I couldn't cope if my family lived just around the corner. You know, I wouldn't be able to survive in that kind of, you know, that kind of way of living. I couldn't do it. So yeah, I'd say I'm the opposite.
Yeah. uh, with my family circumstance, I think it took me. Well, you know what? Let's just get it out on the table. My mum was an alcoholic growing up. My brother got into drugs, and then there was just my dad that just would go to work and live his life and just block all of this stuff out. And then as a kid, that was like, I just don't want to live this life, you know. And that's a prime example of, I had really good parents that gave me what I needed, but they were dealing so much with their own stuff and their own trauma, they get consumed by it. So raising, like now, I've got so much compassion. I'm like, you did what you could, and I love you for that, and that's okay. And now, like the other day, I was with my mum, and she was just in a really bad mood. But before, I'd be like, "Mum, like, stop being in a bad mood." I just knew she just needed a hug. You know, I was like, "Mum, come on, I'll give you a hug," and she would nearly burst out crying. I'm like, "See, like we forget that there's still a child in them as well."
Yeah.
And I think for so long, like, I really struggled with accepting what my family situation is, and that's why moving to London was my sort of escape. And I would find it harder to go back and harder to go back, but I had to do a lot of healing to disconnect from that and go, that's their problems and that's not mine. And it comes back to what you were saying, Ed, as well. Like, why do we like tolerate it if we know that on some level that they don't give us what we need? There is this sort of, guilt's the wrong word, but if I had to leave, I'd just be like, I would feel really terrible.
You can't do that. I understand. I understand that.
I would feel really bad to. So there's like this bond, invisible bond that's just there. But I've had to learn to like. I've had to learn to protect myself, and just accept what is. And still, because I was back home there, and this never happens ever, where I stay longer than 2 or 3 days, and that I was home, and I'm like, I'm really enjoying my time, so I stayed an extra like 2 or 3 days. I'm like, this is incredible. I was just enjoying it. I was just really, really enjoying it, and it's because I've like found acceptance for, this is what they're like, but I love them.
I mean, that by the way comes with age. That applies to all of us. Like, we're roughly same kind of.
That even comes to friends as well. Like,
yeah,
I've accepted some of my friends for being what they are.
Because you learn you can't change others. All you can change is yourself or your circumstance, I think. But yeah, it's just so interesting. Like, I believe there is no such thing as ideal parents, from many different reasons. But let's say from an emotional perspective,
because we're all fucked up.
yeah, exactly. Like, there's everyone. Like, there is no concept. Like, the fact that order exists is like beyond, fascinating. To be fair, because chaos is like the natural, force. But let's say with my parents, and it's a clear sacrifice I see they made. I just don't know how much consciously they did it every single step of the way. But as people, just as everyone else, they could work, more on themselves, right? All of us could. In some ways, I believe it's a little bit harder for them because they still carry, most likely not fully even recognizable remnants of Soviet Union and how that life was. And that's in many different ways of how you used to see yourself, tiny, potentially oppressed. They remember times when they weren't allowed to speak their own language. So to think that that's literally just one generation right here, and that's not just my parents, that is different cultures, different people all across the world. So such things also, let's say, shape their mentality and outlook on the world. But for whatever reason, although they're very modest people, like they're very, like, honestly, my mom would give her last shirt of her back to whoever, might need it. But somehow, although me and my brothers are within reason modest, we're also unbelievably ambitious. Like, we had a 180 adverse effect. And I feel certain struggles that you had, Vikki, and whatever ones you had, Nicole, as well, are what gave this boost to push sometimes. Let's say, I'm sure each one of us has our own individual ones that has nothing to do with other people. But other people also help or not, depending on context. But let's say with all of that premise, because my parents gave us everything, that's how it feels. I'm sure they would have given more, and there's so many things, different people get.
Yeah.
And that something wasn't necessarily material things. That, like, as I said, there's many things they could work on, but truly as parents, and every time I say this, it's really hard to believe, but they did amazing. Like,
Yeah.
the kind of unity me and my brothers have, the way we look at the world, the kind of values we have, the fact that we're not one idea, or narrative kind of minded, and especially coming like literally from the middle of nowhere, do you know what I mean? From a tiny country of less than 2 million people, and now traveling the world doing God knows what. And that's definitely thanks to my parents, to many random things that they did, for all of us. But the price they paid was, now that they're 50 and just over, now they get to sort out things or come to realizations and acceptance of friends and family the way we just agreed 10 minutes ago. And we're around our 30s. So the price they paid was that 20 years for me and my brothers to grow up.
Oh, dear.
And also because they invested more in family than specific careers, although they tried with, lifestyle. They're still here. There's still growth. Me and my brothers by now are so optimistic that, we're just telling them that life's, just getting started, right? And funnily enough, when my youngest brother, I think he must have been like 6 or whatever. I don't remember. But he said, "Mom, I'm going to live to 100 and you're going to see it." That means my mom has to live to like 130 something. But yeah. So the point was that friends, family, all these people, they try, if they do have good intentions, to give everything they can while still trying to sort their own shit. Because I'm pretty sure both of you are exactly the same. we are very friendly people in some manner, and very picky when it comes to who we, I guess, truly make friends with. And that is where, whatever mind it is, just because maybe the values we seek, we no longer are willing to compromise on.
Yeah.
So yeah, with all of that back and forth, and we were just over 40 minutes. Kind of last bit, and I think this is a great way to potentially finish / preset episode 2.
Oh,
Yes.
before you move on, that whole time, both of you, what you said is fucking convicting. Because, what you said, Vicky, about acceptance, that's literally something I'm really working on and trying to do. And it's so hard, when you're kind of in pain or healing, or you kind of feel unseen by the people you didn't choose, the people that are supposed to kind of have your back 24/7. So that whole piece about you just hugging your mum, I can count probably on one hand how many times me and my mum have hugged, and it just made me really want to just see her and just give her the biggest
Love that.
squeeze and just say, do you know what? I accept you. I accept that actually you raised 4 kids on your own. You had your own traumas, childhood traumas, and as well as just relational traumas, all kinds of shit that you had to deal with on top of feeding, housing, working, school, all of this kind of shit. And to kind of still keep your head, to not go insane and to not, yeah, yeah, that's fucking with me still. That was really convicting.
I suggest, Nicole, you do a bit of research on Vicky's life achievements. She's done very, very well for herself, because she's a very
Yeah.
ambitious and hardworking person
Nice.
that truly deserves what she's done so far.
Yeah,
By the way,
good.
congrats on teaching at HDI. The moment I saw that you applied, I was like, yeah, now I get what they're looking for. It's cool. But no, honestly, amazing. And just in general, like, obviously, there's so many random things, like you, Nicole, honestly, you'll love Vicky. Like,
Yay. Oh, I'm glad.
her credits are very long.
Yeah, lovely to meet you, Vicky. I'm just getting
It's
such a
really
good vibe,
beautiful to
good
meet you.
vibes
No,
from
I
you.
love it. I love it. I really
Good
can't wait
vibes.
to meet you.
Oh, I can't either. Sorry, Ed, you don't count anymore.
My job
It's
is to bring people together.
How crazy is that? I love when, like, even if I'm in that position and then you've got like 2 different parts of your world just coming together. I think I love
Absolutely.
that.
Oh,
It happens just because I
love
truly
it.
invest in such things. I do make sure that it happens reasonably often in my life. It's been hard over Corona, obviously, because it's not like you meet endless of new people. But thanks to Fair Play, for example, I've been just knitting a very global network of what I just feel like, hey, you two will probably have a great conversation. I don't know where it's gonna go, but you just have a conversation. No,
You're such a great connector of people, Ed, I think.
But
Like, I think
people
it doesn't
are
matter
seeing
what kind of
vibes.
person. You're like a magnet, for sure, a magnet.
Maybe that's why I always end up being a host. And I don't even mean necessarily podcast right now, but like truly, physically, every single place I've ever lived, the kind of vibe you experienced, Nicole, and the kind of vibe you, Vicky, also knew about, both in Glasgow and here in Leeds about me and Drew. It's been part of our lives always. But yeah, we're not really diverting or starting anything new. The last kind of bit is, can friends become family, and can family be friends? We kind of covered that. But with that in mind, can they? Because when you think about it, your mom and dad, before they were family, what were they?
Yeah, that's a really difficult piece, I find, because, I think as a child, I I met my mum and dad as mum and dad. I had no concept, or I couldn't even grasp the fact that they were people outside of being my mum and my dad. So the requirements I made or placed on them were not of, oh, you're a human being. I'm going to allow you some graces. I'm going to have empathy for you, because I didn't have that kind of language anyway at that time. So I just looked at them like, you, mom, you, dad, gimme, 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 everything that I need, everything that's, I'm a child. So, it's something that's really challenging to. So my mom's a writer, right? So she's written loads of books. So there's so many things that I've discovered about my mom through reading her books. And I've edited a few of them. So, we have this very client, relationship when it comes to that. We get very serious and we get down to it. But then reading some of the stuff, I was like, holy shit, we've been through virtually the exact same things, at probably the exact same times in our lives, but we'd never actually had a face-to-face conversation about these kind of
She just
things.
wrote it down.
Yeah, she just wrote it down for the rest of the world to see. And I was like, oh my goodness, I wish that you had opened up and told me these things. But I also wish I'd allowed you space to feel that you could, say those things and communicate your pain and your trauma, your past and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think a lot of the time as a kid, I was selfish, of course. I was really needy. I was neglecting the fact that these people had a past. And, I found recently a box it's definitely a privilege, to that, especially that communication, or even to have both parents in the house.
Which is that you said that you basically would sit with your family and play games. That was never a thing in my house. And
Neither.
these rituals are important. Like to maybe dedicate one night a week where you come together and you just maybe play a game and have that space to talk. That's something that I do want to do with my kids.
In our family, we expect to behave like our friends. Do we treat them as our friends, though?